I am Brenda, 31 years old, and until last month I was living my best life as a senior investment banker in Manhattan. My career was soaring after years of climbing from my middle-class roots. I was in Paris, literally signing the final papers on a $10 million acquisition when my phone buzzed. A message from Mum with a photo of my precious cobalt blue Porsche 911 GT3 followed by the words that made my stomach drop. Vanessa needed the money more than you needed this car. Let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to follow along as I reveal what happens when family betrays your trust for the golden child. That Porsche 911 GT3 wasn't just a car to me. It represented everything I had worked for since leaving our modest suburban home in Connecticut. The cobalt blue exterior wasn't a standard factory colour. I had paid extra for that custom paint job because I wanted something as unique as my journey. The leather interior smelled like accomplishment, and the purr of that 4L flat 6 engine was the soundtrack to my hard-earned success. I had saved for 7 years to buy that car. 7 years of 60-hour work weeks, skipped vacations, and living in a tiny apartment while my colleagues splurged on Manhattan penis. I still remember the day I walked into the dealership checkbook in hand, not needing financing because I had done it the hard way. The salesman had actually looked surprised when I, a woman in her late 20s, purchased a $140,000 vehicle outright. The car was my first real reward to myself. Growing up in a household where money was always tight, I had learned to put needs before wants. My parents, Harold and Diane, were high school teachers who emphasized education but couldn't afford to pay for college. I had worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA to earn my scholarship to Wharton. While my friends went to parties, I worked night shifts at the campus library, mornings at a coffee shop and weekends doing accounting for local businesses. My love affair with that Porsche went beyond materialistic desire. I had joined a car enthusiast club, making some of my closest friends there. Laura, my best friend, and I would take weekend drives up the coastal highways, letting the engine's growl echo against the cliffs as we discussed life, work, and our dreams. Those drives were my therapy, my escape from the high-pressure world of investment. Banking. My family, however, never quite understood what the car meant to me. My parents had always shown preferential treatment to my younger sister, Vanessa. 4 years younger than me at 27, Vanessa had bounced from one failed venture to another. A clothing boutique that closed within 6 months, an online jewellery business that never turned a profit, a brief stint as a social media influencer that fizzled. When brands realised her engagement rates were abysmal. Each time Vanessa failed, my parents cushioned her fall. They paid off her debts, let her move back home, and financed her next passion project without question. When I expressed concern about this pattern, I was labelled as jealous and unsupportive. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had never asked them for a dime since leaving for college, yet I was somehow the selfish one. Our family dinners often turned into showcases of Vanessa's latest ideas, with my career achievements mentioned as an afterthought if at all. Oh, Brenda got promoted. That's nice. Did you hear? Vanessa is thinking of opening an organic smoothie bar. This dynamic had existed for as long as I could remember, but I had made peace with it, or so I thought. I maintained a cordial relationship with my family while building my own successful life in the city. When I bought the Porsche, my father had actually laughed. "Seems like a waste of money," he said, not understanding that to me it was the physical manifestation of every extra hour I had worked, every sacrifice I had made. My mother had simply asked if I was showing off as if success was something to be hidden rather than celebrated. Vanessa, of course, had immediately asked to borrow it. Just for a weekend, she had pleaded, wanting to impress some new friends. I had politely declined, knowing her history of treating belongings carelessly. This had resulted in a week of cold shoulders and passive-aggressive comments from both her and my mother about how some people don't know how to share their blessings. Despite these tensions, I loved my family. I called weekly, visited monthly, and always remembered birthdays and anniversaries with thoughtful gifts. I had hoped that with time they would recognise and respect the life I had built for myself. Little did I know that their disregard for my boundaries would soon cross a line I never imagined possible. The European acquisition had been months in the making. Our firm was facilitating the purchase of a French tech startup by an American corporation. $10 million deal that, if successful, would almost certainly fast-track me to a vice president position. At 31, that would make me one of the youngest VPs in the firm's history. The negotiations were complex, requiring me to spend 3 weeks in Europe, primarily in Paris, with short trips to Amsterdam and Berlin to meet with subsidiary stakeholders. I had prepared meticulously, learning key French business terms and studying the tech company's patents and potential until my eyes burned from staring at my laptop screen. My apartment building in Manhattan was undergoing security system upgrades, during this time with contractors coming and going at all hours. Not feeling comfortable leaving my prized Porsche in the underground garage under these circumstances, I decided to store it at my parents' house in Connecticut. They had a spacious 2-car garage with my father's sedan, usually taking only one spot. The second spot had remained empty since my father sold his vintage Mustang years ago. 2 days before my departure, I drove the Porsche to their house. The familiar rumble of the engine turning into their driveway brought back memories of coming home from college, though back then I'd been driving a 15-year-old Honda with a muffler that announced my arrival from 2 blocks away. "Are you sure? It will be safe here?" I asked my father as he helped me cover the car with its custom-fitted car cover. "Of course," he assured me, patting the covered roof. "Nobody will even know it's here. We'll keep the garage locked." My mother had prepared my favourite dinner, her lasagna, with the recipe passed down from my Italian grandmother. As we ate, I explained the importance of the upcoming deal, trying to convey why this opportunity meant so much to me professionally. "That sounds wonderful, honey," my mother said, though her eyes kept drifting to the kitchen clock. Later, I would realise she had been waiting for Vanessa to arrive. My sister breezed in halfway through dinner, as was her custom, making a grand entrance in designer clothes I knew she couldn't afford on her meagre income from the part-time barista job she had, taken after her latest business, failure. "Oh my God, is that your car under that cover in the garage?" Vanessa exclaimed, helping herself to the lasagna. "You have to let me see it." After dinner, I reluctantly showed her the Porsche, removing the cover to reveal the gleaming cobalt blue paint. Vanessa's eyes widened. "This must have cost a fortune," she whispered, running her hand along the hood. "It did," I replied simply. 7 years of saving. "Can I drive it while you're gone?" she asked immediately. "No, Vanessa, nobody's driving it. It's staying covered and locked in the garage until I get back." She pouted, giving me the same look she had used to get her way since childhood. "Come on, just around the block. I'll be super careful." I said, "No, this isn't like borrowing a sweater. This car is worth more than $100,000. My father cleared his throat from the garage doorway. "Your sister said, 'No, Vanessa, respect her decision.'" I was momentarily stunned by his support, but grateful. Later that night, however, I overheard them talking in the kitchen when they thought I had gone to bed. "It's ridiculous for her to have a car like that just sitting there when she's not even using it," Vanessa was saying. "She's always been so selfish." "It's her money, her car," my father responded, though his tone lacked conviction. Still, my mother chimed in. "Family should help family. She knows you're struggling to get your new business off the ground. I should have confronted them then. I should have taken my keys and driven back to Manhattan's security upgrade. Be damned, but I didn't want to create drama before my big trip. And foolishly, I still trusted my parents to respect my property. This was a decision I would soon regret. Bitterly. The morning of my departure, I gave final instructions to my parents about the car, checking tyre pressure monthly, starting it once a week to keep the battery charged and the code to the alarm system. My father nodded along, making notes that I believed showed his commitment to caring for my prized possession. As my Uber arrived to take me to JFK Airport, I gave my parents tight hugs and promised to bring them souvenirs from Paris. Vanessa was notably absent, having stayed out late the night before. With a final glance back at the garage where my Porsche rested, I left for what he believed would be my career-defining trip, blissfully unaware of the betrayal already taking shape behind me. Paris in early spring was everything the movies promised. cafes spilling onto cobblestone streets, the Seine reflecting centuries of history, and the Eiffel Tower punctuating the skyline like an elegant exclamation point. But I barely saw any of it. My days were consumed with meetings in sterile conference rooms, working lunches where I picked at overpriced salads while discussing market projections, and nights spent in my hotel room revising proposals. The American corporation Tech Vault was represented by their CFO, Richard Garrison, an intimidating 60-year-old with wire-rimmed glasses, and a reputation for killing deals at the last minute if the numbers didn't satisfy him. The French startup Neurosync had revolutionary AI algorithms that Tech Vault desperately wanted, but they were playing hardball on the valuation. They're asking for 12 million now, Richard told me on day 3, his face flushed with anger after. We agreed on 10. This is why I hate European deals. Let me talk to them, I offered. Their lead developer, Antoine, seems to respond better to me. This was an understatement. Antoine Marot, the brilliant but eccentric founder of Neurosync, had taken a liking to me after I had demonstrated genuine interest in his technology. Where Richard saw dollar signs, I recognized the potential for Antoine's work to transform industries. This authentic appreciation had earned me his respect. The negotiations dragged on longer than expected. 1 week turned into 2, then approached 3. I barely slept, subsisting on espresso and adrenaline. My boss back in New York sent increasingly urgent emails. Tech Vault is getting antsy, close. This deal, or we may have to replace you. The pressure was crushing, but I thrived under it. This was what I had worked for all those years. The chance to prove myself on an international stage, handling millions of dollars with the confidence I had built through years of preparation and sacrifice. The breakthrough came during a late-night session in Antoine's office. After hours of discussion, I suggested a compromise. $1 million up front with performance bonuses that could potentially add another $3 million over 3 years if certain benchmarks were met. Antoine smiled for the first time in days. You understand? Both the business and the vision, Mademoiselle Williams. This is acceptable to me. The next morning, we gathered in the conference room overlooking the Arc de Triomphe. Sunlight streamed through the windows as attorneys reviewed the final documents. When Richard and Antoine shook hands, relief flooded through me. I had done it. The $10 million deal was complete, and my career trajectory had just gone vertical. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I allowed myself a moment of private celebration, doing a silent, happy dance before composing myself back into the professional banker everyone expected. I texted my boss, deal closed, 10 million upfront potential, 3 million in performance bonuses. His response was, immediate brilliant work. We need to discuss your future when you get back. This was it. The vice presidency was within reach. I would return to New York, triumphant drive my beautiful Porsche to the office on Monday, and accept the promotion I had earned through years of dedication and this final impressive achievement. Or so I thought, as I was packing my hotel room that evening, preparing for an early flight back to New York the next day. My phone dinged with a message from Laura. Call me as soon as possible. It's about your car. My stomach tightened. I called immediately. What's wrong? Did something happen to the Porsche? I asked as soon as she picked up. Laura's voice was hesitant. Brenda, I don't know how to tell you this, but I just saw Vanessa driving a brand new BMW. When I asked her about it, she bragged that her new boutique was opening next week, and Brenda, she told me, your parents sold your Porsche to help finance her store. The room seemed to tilt sideways. That's impossible. They couldn't do that. I'm so sorry. She showed me pictures on her phone of your car at some dealer's lot. She was laughing about how you would never even miss it with all your money. I ended the call in a daze and immediately tried calling my parents. No answer. I called their landline. Nothing. I texted my mother. Did you sell my car? No response. I tried Vanessa next. Her phone went straight to voicemail. That night was the longest of my life. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, alternating between disbelief, rage, and heartbreak. The car that had represented my independence and success had been taken from me by the very people who should have protected what was mine. And for what another of Vanessa's doomed business ventures, I changed my flight, paying an exorbitant fee, to leave the next morning, rather than waiting until the following day as planned. As the plane crossed the Atlantic, I couldn't even appreciate the triumph of the deal I had just closed. All I could think about was confronting the betrayal waiting for me at home. The Uber from JFK to my parents' house in Connecticut seemed to crawl through traffic. Every red light was an eternity. Every slow driver, an obstacle between me and the truth I needed to confirm with my own eyes. I had barely slept on the overnight flight, my mind racing with scenarios of confrontation, each ending with a different version of justice being served. When we finally pulled into my parents' driveway, the first thing I noticed was the empty garage. The door was open, revealing my father's sedan and the vacant spot where my Porsche should have been. Despite Laura's warning, some part of me had clung to the hope that this was all a misunderstanding, that my car would be there safe under its cover. That hope died as I wheeled my suitcase up the driveway. My mother opened the front door before I could knock her expression, a mixture of surprise and something else. Guilt, perhaps, or defiance. It was hard to tell. "Brenda, you're back early. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." She moved to hug me, but I stepped back. "Where is my car?" My voice was eerily calm, belying the storm raging inside me. My father appeared behind her, his face ashen. "Let's talk inside." I followed them into the familiar living room, noticing how nothing had changed. The same family photos on the mantel, the same worn couch where we had watched movies together, the same wallpaper my mother had chosen 20 years ago. Everything was the same except for the fundamental trust that had been shattered. "Where is my Porsche?" I repeated, setting my suitcase aside and remaining standing while they Saturday. My mother sighed, then lifted her chin in that way she did when she believed she was right, regardless of evidence to the contrary. Vanessa needed start-up capital for her new boutique. The bank wouldn't give her a loan because of her previous setbacks. So, "You sold my car." The calm in my voice was evaporating rapidly. "Your sister needed it more than you did," my mother stated, as if this justified Grand Theft Auto. "You have a successful career. You can buy another car." This was Vanessa's last chance to make something of herself. My father at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "We were going to tell you when you got back. We thought you'd understand. Family helps family." "That wasn't your decision to make," I was shouting now, years of restrained frustration bursting forth. "That car was mine. I worked for it. I paid for it. You had no right." My mother's expression hardened. "Don't take that tone with me, young lady. We raised you better than Toby so materialistic. It's just a car. Just a car." I laughed bitterly. That just a car cost me $140,000 and 7 years of saving. "How much did you sell it for?" My father cleared his throat. $85,000. The dealer said it had depreciated even with the low mileage. I felt physically ill. They had practically given away my car, getting barely 60% of its value, and I knew exactly why. They had needed the money quickly before I returned and discovered their plan. "How could you do this to me?" My voice broke the betrayal, cutting deeper than I had imagined possible. Before either could answer, the front door opened again. Vanessa sauntered in, dressed in expensive new clothes, her hair freshly styled. She froze when she saw me. "Oh, you're back early." Her surprise quickly morphed into the practiced innocence she had perfected since childhood. "Did Mum and Dad tell you the exciting news? My boutique opens next week. I'm calling it Vanessa's Vision. You'll have to come to the grand opening." She spoke as if nothing was wrong, as if she hadn't just participated in stealing from me. Her blatant disregard for what she had done ignited something cold and resolute within me. "How's the new BMW driving?" I asked quietly. She had the audacity to smile. "It's amazing. Not as flashy as your Porsche, but more practical for business, you know." "So, you got a new car and a new business with the money from my car," I clarified, connecting dots I had suspected but needed confirmed. My mother jumped in. "The car was just part of the startup costs. The space needed renovation and there's inventory. Marketing." I held up my hand, silencing her. I looked directly at Vanessa, who was now examining her manicure as if this conversation was boring her. Then I spoke the 6 words that would change everything. She will pay back every single cent. My mother's face fell. My father looked away. Vanessa's head snapped up her expression, moving from boredom to disbelief. You can't be serious, Vanessa scoffed. It's already done. The car's gone. My boutique opens in 6 days. I don't care if it opens tomorrow, I replied, my voice steady, again cold with determination. You stole from me, all of you, and I will get my money back one way or another. Don't be dramatic, my mother said dismissively. No one stole anything. We're family. We share. Sharing implies consent, I countered. I never consented to this. You took advantage of my trust and stole my property, and now there will be consequences. Vanessa rolled her eyes. What are you going to do, Sue? Your own family. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. At the threshold, I turned back to them. These people who shared my blood but had betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way. If necessary, yes, I close multi-million-dollar deals for a living. Trust me when I say I'm fully prepared to get back what's mine. I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me. As I called for another Uber, I felt a strange mixture of grief and resolve. The family I had known was gone, replaced by people I couldn't trust. But in that painful clarity, I found a new strength. They had underestimated me my entire life. They were about to learn just how costly that mistake would be. The next morning, I woke up in my Manhattan apartment, feeling strangely calm. The initial shock and rage had crystallized into something more focused, a determination to right this wrong. I was not going to let this betrayal stand, not just for the monetary value of the car, but for the principle. Some lines should never be crossed, even by family. My first call was to Daniel Cooper, a Harvard-educated attorney I had worked with on several business deals. He specialized in financial litigation, but had a background in property law. I explained my situation over breakfast at a Kiat cafe near my apartment. So, your parents sold your car without permission while you were out of the country, Daniel clarified, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. Exactly. I left it in their garage for safekeeping, not for them to sell. And the title was solely in your name. Yes, completely. I paid for it outright. They had no legal claim to it whatsoever. Daniel nodded, his expression serious. This is straightforward legally speaking. What they did constitutes conversion, the unauthorized taking of someone else's property. Did you give them any document allowing them to sell the vehicle, power of attorney, anything? Absolutely not. I just asked them to keep it safe while I was in Europe. He made notes on his legal pad. We have several options here. We could file a civil suit for the full value of the vehicle, not what they sold it for, but what it was actually worth. We could potentially even pursue criminal charges, though I'm guessing you prefer not to see your parents in jail. I winced at the thought. Despite everything, I didn't want that. The goal is to get my money back, not to ruin their lives. It's my sister I hold most responsible. She manipulated them. I'm sure of it. Then we focus on recovery. I'll draft a demand letter immediately. Sometimes just hearing from an attorney is enough to make people take the situation seriously. While Daniel worked on the legal angle, I began my own investigation. I still had the spare key to my parents' house, a key I now realized I should never use again without explicit permission. But before I surrendered it, I needed information. I waited until the following day when I knew they would both be at work. My father still taught high school history, and my mother was a librarian at the local elementary school. Vanessa would likely be at her precious boutique preparing for the grand opening. The house was empty when I arrived. I went straight to my father's home office where he kept all important documents. It didn't take long to find the paperwork from the car sale. My father had always been meticulously organised, if nothing else. The sale had been completed just 3 days after I left for Europe. They hadn't even waited a week. The buyer was Winchester Luxury Motors, a high-end used car dealership about 30 meters away. The sale price was exactly what my father had admitted, $85,000. The signature on the title transfer was a poor forgery of my own. That was something I hadn't expected. Actual fraud on top of theft. I photographed all the documents with my phone, then located their bank statements. Sure enough, There was a deposit for $85,000 followed by a withdrawal of $60,000 to something called Vision LLC, Vanessa's new company. The remaining $25,000 had been transferred to her personal account, likely for the BMW. Before leaving, I checked their personal calendar, noting that they were planning to attend Vanessa's boutique opening on Saturday. I would be there too, though they wouldn't know it beforehand. Next, I drove to the address listed on the Vision LLC registration, a small storefront in an upscale shopping centre about 20 minutes from my parents' house. From across the street, I could see Vanessa directing workers who were arranging clothing displays. A professional look sign reading Vanessa's Vision hung above the door, with grand opening Saturday on a banner below. I took photos of the storefront, then called Laura. Need a favour, I told her. Can you go shopping at my sister's new boutique on Thursday? I want to know what she's selling, price points, inventory levels. Anything you can find out, Laura, loyal friend. That she was agreed immediately. I'll be your spy. Do you want me to wear a wire? She joked. Just your regular clothes will be fine. I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in days. With my reconnaissance in progress, I met with Daniel again to review the demand letter he had drafted. It was perfect, professional, unemotional, and absolutely clear about the legal consequences if my family did not make restitution. I've included the forged signature as a separate issue, Daniel explained. That elevates this from a family dispute to potential criminal fraud. It should get their attention. When do we send it? I asked. I would recommend waiting until after you've confronted them in person. Give them one chance to make this right without legal action. If they refuse, we send this the same day. People like your sister, entitled and used to getting their way, often need to see that you're serious before they'll back down. He nodded, agreeing with his assessment. There's one more thing I need to know. The car itself. Can we get it back? Daniel sighed. Unfortunately, if it's been sold to a third-party buyer who purchased it in good faith, that complicates things. The dealer might still have it, though. Want me to check? Please. It wasn't just transportation, Tome. It meant something. While Daniel made inquiries about the car, Laura called with her report from Vanessa's boutique. It's all overpriced designer knockoffs. She said she's charging boutique prices for wholesale quality. And get this, she's only got about 30 items in. The entire store. It looks half empty. Oh, and I overheard her arguing with a vendor about payment terms. Sounds like she's already having cash flow problems. This confirmed what I had suspected. Vanessa had no business plan, just a vague idea of being a boutique owner without understanding the economics involved. The $85,000 from my car would be gone. Within months, maybe weeks, with nothing to show for it. My final preparation was to hire a private investigator to document Vanessa's spending habits. It took only 3 days for him to provide a damning report. In the 2 weeks since receiving the money from my car, Vanessa had one, put a down payment on the BMW 2, rented the store space at above market rate. 3, taken a business trip to New York that consisted mainly of shopping and nightclubbing. 4, purchased designer clothes, shoes and handbags for herself under the guise of research. 5, hired an interior decorator for her apartment. Less than 20% of the money had actually gone toward inventory for the store. The rest was being squandered on her lifestyle and vanity projects. Armed with this information and Daniel's legal preparations, I was ready for the confrontation. The boutique opening was tomorrow, and I would be there, not as the supportive sister Vanessa might hope for, but as the rightful owner of the money she was so carelessly spending. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring. Day that would normally have found me taking my Porsche for a drive along the coast. Instead, I was preparing for a confrontation that would forever alter my family dynamics. I dressed carefully in my most imposing business attire, a charcoal grey suit that I typically reserved for high-stakes negotiations. My hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, my makeup minimal but precise. I wanted to look professional, not emotional. This was, after all, now a business matter. The grand opening was scheduled for 10 Saugui. I arrived at 9:45 parking across the street to observe. A small crowd had gathered, mostly my parents' friends and what appeared to be Vanessa's social circle. My parents stood proudly near the entrance, my mother taking photos, while my father chatted with his colleagues. At precisely 10, Vanessa emerged from the boutique wearing a designer dress that I recognized as costing more than $3,000. Another purchase courtesy of my Porsche, no doubt. She made a brief speech about following dreams and taking chances, then cut a ribbon to enthusiastic applause. I waited until most of the attendees had entered the store, then crossed the street. Through the window, I could see people browsing the sparse racks, sipping complimentary champagne, and making polite conversation. It was time. The bell above the door chimed as I entered. My mother saw me first, her smile faltering. She nudged. My father, who turned his expression immediately guarded. Vanessa was in the middle of describing a dress to an older woman, her back to the door. When the conversation around her quieted, she turned her eyes widening when she spotted me. "Brenda, you came," she covered quickly, plastering on a bright smile. "Everyone, this is my successful sister I told you about." Several people nodded politely in my direction. I smiled thinly, then spoke in a clear, carrying voice. "I need to speak with my family privately, please." Vanessa laughed nervously. "Can't it? Wait, we're in the middle of the opening." "No, it can't wait. This won't take long." My father, always one to avoid public scenes, gestured toward the back room. "Let's step into the office." Once the door closed behind us, the pretense dropped. My mother crossed her arms defensively while Vanessa rolled her eyes. My father simply looked tired. "You really know how to ruin a special day?" Vanessa snapped. "What's so important? It couldn't wait." I set my briefcase on the small desk and removed a folder. "I've been investigating what happened with my car. I know everything. The sale to Winchester Luxury Motors, the forged signature on the title transfer, the distribution of funds to Vision LLC, and Vanessa's personal account." My father pearled. "How did you—" "That's not important," I interrupted. "What matters is what happens next. I'm giving you one opportunity to make this right before I take legal action." My mother scoffed. "Legal action against your own family?" "You wouldn't." "I have a demand letter prepared by my attorney." I removed it from the folder. "It outlines the case for conversion of property fraud and forgery. It demands full restitution of $140,000, the actual value of my car, not the discounted price you sold it for." "This is ridiculous," Vanessa sputtered. "I don't have that kind of money. I've invested it in the business." "Actually, you haven't," I countered, pulling out the private investigator's report. According to financial records, only about $17,000 went toward actual inventory. The rest paid for your BMW, your shopping sprees, and your decorator. My father took their port, scanning it with growing dismay. "Vanessa, you said the money was for the business." "It is my business," she shouted. "Looking the part is part of the business." My mother tried a different approach. "Brenda, be reasonable. Even if what you're saying is true, you can't expect Vanessa to come up with that kind of money overnight. The boutique just opened." "I'm not unreasonable," I replied coolly. "I'm prepared to accept a payment plan with interest, of course, just like any other loan. Or Vanessa can sell the business and the BMW and pay me back immediately." Sell the business after all this work? Never. Vanessa was nearly hysterical now. "Then I'll be filing suit on Monday morning. The police will also be interested in the forgery." My father's head snapped up. "Police? Brenda, you can't be serious. Who forged my signature?" I asked, though I already suspected. After a long silence, my father's shoulders slumped. "I did. The dealer required the title holder's signature, and I thought we could explain it to you later that you'd understand once you saw how successful Vanessa's boutique was going to be." The admission hurt more than I expected. My own father had committed fraud, believing I would simply accept it after the fact. "Dad, what you did was illegal. What all of you did was wrong on every level. You betrayed my trust, you stole from me, and now you're acting like I'm the unreasonable one for wanting justice." My mother began to cry. Whether from genuine remorse or manipulation, I couldn't tell anymore. "We're family, Brenda. Families forgive." "Forgiveness has to be earned," I replied. "It starts with making amends." The door opened suddenly, and Laura stepped in. I had asked her to come as moral support, but the timing of her entrance was perfect dramatic effect. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, not sounding sorry at all, "but I thought you might want to see this, Brenda." She handed me her phone open to a text conversation. I read it silently, then turned the screen for my family to see. They were messages from Vanessa to Laura from 6 months earlier. LOL just sabotaged Brenda's presentation by accidentally spilling coffee on her laptop before her big meeting. She'll never get that promotion now. Maybe she'll stop being so full of herself. More messages followed detailing other ways Vanessa had deliberately tried to undermine me over the years. From borrowing and deliberately damaging my clothes to spreading rumours among our extended family that I was cold and thought I was better than everyone. Vanessa's face drained of colour. "You had no right to show those." "Those were private like my car was private property," I countered. "Laura showed me these months ago. I forgave you, then chalked it up to jealousy and insecurity. But now I see the pattern. You've resented my success, instead of working for your own, and our parents have enabled your worst behaviour." My father looked between us, confusion and dismay evident on his face. "Vanessa, tell me you didn't deliberately sabotage your sister." For the first time, Vanessa seemed to realise she had no escape. Her carefully constructed image was crumbling. "You don't understand what it's like being Brenda's sister," she burst out. "Perfect Brenda with her scholarships and her fancy job and her expensive car. Everyone always comparing me to her, wondering why I couldn't be more like her. So, you decided to pull me down instead of building yourself up?" I asked quietly. "You think you're so much better than me?" She spat. "You and your holier-than-thou attitude looking down on my failed businesses, while you cash your big Wall Street checks. Someone needed to take you down a peg." The raw honesty was almost refreshing after years of passive-aggressive behaviour. At least, now the truth was in the open. My mother looked stricken. "Vanessa, how could you think that way about your sister? After all, she's done to help you over the years. Help me. She never helped me. She just succeeded and made me look bad by comparison." "I offered to help you write business plans," I reminded her. "I offered to introduce you to potential investors. You refused because you said you wanted to do it your way. Your way apparently included stealing from me." My father sat heavily on a nearby chair. "We've made a terrible mistake," he admitted, looking older than I had ever seen him. "All of us." I nodded, feeling no satisfaction in their realisation, only a deep sadness that it had come to this. "So, what happens now is up to you. Either Vanessa starts liquidating assets to pay me back, or I file the lawsuit Monday morning." Vanessa looked panicked, but the boutique just opened. "How am I supposed to sell it already?" "That's not my problem," I applied. "You should have thought of that before stealing my car." The room fell silent as the reality of the situation sank in. My family had crossed a line, and now they were facing consequences they had never anticipated. The perfect image they had of themselves. Loving parents' misunderstood daughter with potential was shattered, replaced by the harsh truth they had enabled entitlement until it crossed into criminality. And I, the daughter they had taken for granted, was finally standing firm on what was our right, regardless of blood ties. The aftermath of that confrontation unfolded over the following weeks, with the inevitability of a Greek tragedy. Vanessa's boutique closed before it had been open a full month. The few items that had sold had done so at deep discounts, as her pricing strategy proved as flawed as her business model. The BMW went next, sold to a dealership at a significant loss, given how recently she had purchased it. My father, to his credit, took responsibility in a way that surprised me. He liquidated a portion of his retirement savings to contribute to the restitution. When combined with the proceeds from Vanessa's failed ventures, they managed to repay me $120,000 of the $140,000 I had demanded. I accepted this as payment in full, recognizing that the remaining $20,000 was a small price to pay for the clarity this situation had brought to my life. With the settlement money, I purchased a different car, a Mercedes E-Class in silver. It was beautiful, comfortable, and exactly what I needed, but it lacked the emotional connection I had felt with my Porsche. Daniel had discovered that my original car had been sold to a collector in California within days of my parents selling it to the dealership. It was gone along with the dream it had represented. But life moved forward. My success with the European acquisition earned me the vice presidency at my firm along, with a substantial bonus that more than covered the financial loss from the car. My office now had a view of Central Park, and my team had doubled in size. Professionally, I was soaring higher than ever. My relationship with my family, however, required more complicated healing. For 3 months after the confrontation, I maintained minimal contact, brief civil texts on birthdays and holidays, but nothing more. I needed space to process the betrayal and decide what kind of relationship I wanted with them. Moving forward, if any. My mother was the first to reach out meaningfully. She sent a handwritten letter that arrived at my apartment on a rainy Tuesday evening. Unlike her previous attempts at communication, which had been filled with justifications and subtle guilt trips, this letter contained a genuine apology. "We lost sight of what truly matters," she wrote. "We favoured one child at the expense of another, and in doing so, we failed you both. Vanessa never learned responsibility, and you never felt truly valued. I am deeply sorry for the pain we caused you, and for betraying your trust in such a fundamental way. It was a start." 2 weeks later, I agreed to meet them for lunch at a neutral location, a restaurant halfway between Manhattan and their home in Connecticut. The conversation was stilted at first, painful in its politeness, but as the meal progressed, something shifted. My father spoke about how they had been attending family therapy, learning about healthy boundaries, and the damage caused by favoritism. "We thought we were helping Vanessa by always rescuing her, Hess explained, "but we were actually preventing her from growing up, and we took you for granted because you were always so capable." "I needed you too," I admitted. "Not financially, but I needed your recognition, your pride in what I had accomplished." "We were proud," my mother insisted. "We just didn't know how to show it without making Vanessa feel worse about herself. We handled everything wrong. It wasn't an instant reconciliation. Trust once shattered doesn't reassemble without visible cracks, but it was an honest conversation. Perhaps the first truly honest exchange we'd had as a family in years. Vanessa's journey was more complicated. After the boutique failed and the BMW was gone, she spiraled into a depression, finally confronting the reality that her pattern of failures wasn't due to bad luck or lack of support, but her own choices and attitude. My parents, no longer enabling her, insisted she get professional help. Months after the confrontation, she reached out to me directly. We met at a coffee shop near my office. She looked different. Her clothes were simpler, her makeup minimal, her expression humbled. "I've been in therapy," she said without preamble. "Turns out, I have a lot of issues to work through." "That's good," I replied cautiously. "Therapy has helped many people. The therapist helped me see that I've been competing with you my entire life, and when I couldn't win, I tried to sabotage you instead. It was wrong, and I'm sorry." I studied her face, looking for the manipulation I had come to expect. But her eyes were clear, her expression open. This appeared to be genuine remorse. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "It will take time to rebuild trust." "I know I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I haven't earned it." She took a deep breath. "I got a job, aerial one, with regular hours and a boss and everything. I'm an assistant manager at a retail store in the mall. How's that going?" "It's hard," she admitted. "Taking orders, dealing with customers, being accountable for my mistakes, but it's also kind of freeing. For the first time, I'm learning actual skills instead of just chasing some vague dream of being a business owner without doing the work." We talked for an hour. It wasn't a miraculous reconciliation, but it was a beginning. She was taking responsibility, and I was cautiously opening the door to having a relationship with her again, a different relationship based on reality rather than resentment and competition. Today, nearly a year after the coincident, our family is different. Not perfect, not completely healed, but healthier. My parents have learned to respect boundaries. Vanessa has been promoted at her job, and is taking business classes at the community college, building a foundation of knowledge before attempting another venture. And I have learned that standing firm on my own worth doesn't mean cutting people out forever. It means requiring them to treat me with the respect I deserve. The loss of my dream car taught me that sometimes the most valuable things we lose make room for something more important: self-respect, honest relationships, and the courage to demand better from the people who claim to love us. I don't regret forcing my sister to repay what was taken from me. That consequence was necessary for her growth and for justice to be served. But the real repayment came in the form of truth, accountability, and the painful but essential rebuilding of family bonds, own a foundation of genuine respect rather than obligation. So what would you do if someone you loved betrayed your trust? Would you stand firm like I did, or would you let it slide to keep the peace? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about setting boundaries and finding strength after betrayal. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for yourself even against family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most profound healing.